Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Big Dreams, Great Teams podcast. I have an incredible guest with me today, a very impressive female founder of a fitness empire that is growing fast across Australia. And her name is Allana Ford. Allana is the founder and the CEO of Muse Pilates, a very successful and fast-growing Pilates business with an annual revenue of almost 7 million. Muse is proudly female-led, and they have almost 100 dedicated team members across 13 Pilates studios, a head office team of 18, and they've just sold their first 2 franchises. And they're not stopping there. They're on a mission to make fitness fun, inclusive, and accessible to everybody. And they have plans to continue to expand across Australia and internationally. So Allana has done all of this since opening the doors only in 2019. And I've had the great pleasure of supporting her and her team for some of this journey. So I'm so excited to have her here with us on the podcast to share some of the behind the scenes of this fast growth, what she's learned, what she's had to change to be able to scale so successfully. So without any further ado, a very big warm welcome to you, Allana. Thanks for being here.
Hello. Thanks for having me on. That was very slick. I like that.
Well, obviously you are amazing and your business success has been incredible to watch and of course be a very small part of it. I'd love to start this conversation by taking you back to the beginning, 2019. Why did you go into business for yourself? Tell us about the start.
So I opened in December of 2019 and it had been a couple of years coming. I had the idea way back when I kind of had a knee injury. I had knee surgery. My knee wasn't quite the same. I was a bit of an exercise junkie, kind of couldn't find after that surgery, and I had some complications and things like that. I couldn't really find exercise that I could really get into and do and loved after that. And I found Reformer Pilates. I was living in Sydney at the time, absolutely loved the style of exercise, but I just thought that the spaces and the studios and kind of the way that it was done could be done better, like optimized. And I went to a few different studios and they were kind of a bit bland, if I'm honest, a little bit, unisex almost, like nothing. I love beautiful things and light things, and it lights me up to be in beautiful spaces. So I just had this idea for quite a while that A, I thought that it was a really good business to run and own, and then B, I just thought that it could be done in a better way. And I set about, doing all the numbers and getting all the information, looking for a spot. There was a couple of false starts, like one that I thought that I had, and then I couldn't get the DA on it. It wasn't in the right area. So it probably took about 18 months or 2 years to actually go from having the idea to opening my first studio. It was a long time coming, I think. It wasn't a quick process. And obviously it's something that cost quite a lot of money to set up. It was saving up as well. Yeah, I just thought, why not?
I love that. Why not? So 5 years on, what do you wish Allana back then in 2019 knew that you know now?
I think so many things, but I kind of wish that I'd done it sooner. It took how long it took and I don't regret anything, but there was a lot of seems good, trying to convince, other people. And I was married at the time, so I had to obviously get my ex on board. And, when you're married, it's your money that you're putting into things, joint kind of thing, and he's an accountant as well. So all of those figures and everything. And I was trying to convince him for quite a while that it was a really smart business decision to do. Yeah. I mean, I guess the only thing would be I wish that I jumped in sooner. I think I've learned lots of things along the way.
Yeah. So just get going.
Just start and figure it out.
And it isn't interesting because you can get really paralyzed in the analysis. And particularly, knowing a little bit about you, you do just want to get going. You've got that really get started energy. So that would be really interesting as well, kind of being like, oh, are we in analysis paralysis? Let's go.
And it depends on people's risk profiles as well. Like I'm 35 now. I was 30 at the time. It's just, if you do this and it doesn't work out, your times are done. There's always more money, you figure out how to get it back or how to, do something different. So I think it depends on your risk profile, but I've got quite a high your risk. So yeah.
Yeah, love that. And you're also a mum to 2 beautiful little kitties. Tell me about how you've managed to grow, so fast and do so much while also balancing that side of your life and other people who need you.
Yeah, that is quite tricky. So I've got a 6 and a 7-year-old. So they are still quite young and they were only teeny tiny when I opened the first studio. I've got photos of Harvey as a little 1-year-old bub on the reformers. It's so cute. managing all the different responsibilities can be tricky at times. And I have really got on board other people to help with those things. Well, not with things that you can outsource, help around the house, help with the children so that I can, when I'm spending time with them, it's that one-on-one really good time and I'm not just around all the time but working, or around all the time but it's not focused. So I think calling in that village to help has been really important. I think we live in an environment now in a time where you don't really naturally have that village around, and sometimes you do have to pay for that village, and I've been okay with that. Yeah.
That's such a good point, because it's not everybody has like a mum down the street or a sister around the corner or whatever. And if you do, amazing, lucky you.
But then there also comes, a lot of people have that, but then they can have guilt around actually asking for help, or I think however help or support looks to you, I think calling that in and knowing that there's absolutely no way that I could have done what I've done without that household support, if that makes sense. It wouldn't be possible. So
yeah, absolutely. That's definitely one of the things that I got in place really early, having been in business for 14 years, is help around the house, whether it was a nanny or even a cleaner, because I got really clear. I was like, I'm happy to tidy, but can someone else bring their elbow into it and actually do the scrubbing, please? Like,
you have to maximize your time too. And I think for me, it's like I'm either working and making money, or I'm having fun, or I'm being, mama bear, having a good time nurturing my children. Like, I don't want to do anything else. Like, I really don't. It's being strategic with what you'll outsource so that you can focus everyone has the same amount of time, but what do you want to be spending your time doing?
Yep. Love that. All right. So let's think about, I guess, that's kind of a lesson for everybody. But if we think about some of the other things that have really changed in the way you've operated or the way the business has operated to be able to scale. So, if we think back to when you had 2 studios versus 13 studios, what are some of the big lessons? And similarly, probably going from like 5 instructors to 100 instructors, what are some of the big lessons or changes that, you can reflect on now?
I think having extremely tight policies and procedures, and, having 1 or 2 studios and kind of just, here's what we do, and going along with it, to having 5 or 10 or 13, everything has to be so schmick, and that lended itself to going into franchising and that kind of thing. It made it, we were already doing everything across a number of states, everything exactly the same, and it was really tight policies and procedures. So I think that was the most important thing, was getting the systems and policies and procedures going from 1 to more.
And I think, some of the work we did was probably even just the awareness around the policies that worked in those first sort of 3 to 4 studios, actually the level of detail that's required, because it's sort of like so many different people are in the mix and they're going to make so many different assumptions and about the wording or the language. So it's like we need to define so much more.
Exactly. I think another thing, and it comes back to policies and procedures, but making things about the business and not about me, or not about what I want or how, certain things might make me feel. It's like, well, what does the business need to get from here to where you want the business to be? I think that's something that probably the number one thing that I've taken away from the work that I've done with you.
So is that like, it's not about doing this for Allana or what Allana wants, and actually like separating that identity to being like, what does the business need here? Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes when I would have that reaction to, what a team member might do or something that might happen, or, just taking a step back and thinking, well, what does the business need in this situation? It's not about my reaction. Or, if a team member did something in such a way, like, I can't believe that. Like, I wouldn't do that to someone else. Or, making it about me specifically, and just stepping back and what does the business need in this situation? The business needs X. That didn't happen. Why? Is there some kind of a missing system or procedure? And really just making it 2 different entities, because when you start something that is small and then it grows into this like quite big business, it can't be like your baby anymore. It's this bigger kind of thing that everything needs to be clear, and it's not about me.
Yeah. Oh, I love hearing that. And I feel very proud of you right now. It's so interesting though, because it still feels so personal so much of the time, doesn't it? And it's like, how do we catch ourselves in that moment where it feels like somebody is,
personally disrespecting us, whereas they just, you're like, oh my goodness. most of the time has absolutely nothing to do with you. And there was just a miscommunication, or, a policy or procedure might have to be tighter, or the expectation of something wasn't set properly.
Love. Okay. So let's talk about hiring. How do you manage it at Muse, and how has that changed over the years, from like hiring a couple of instructors to work in a couple of studios to this moving piece of 100 people across 13 studios and more opening? Wow.
Yeah. Hiring, the process has changed quite a lot. It used to be a real, oh, you're available, you seem pretty good, but see what happens. Honestly, though, back in the day with one studio, and then it's become so refined. And I think that, when I worked with you, we refined that process quite a bit on recruiting instructors, especially when you're then starting to recruit instructors over different states, and it's getting quite big. I think the head office team and those full-time, really big, juicy roles, I think a bit more time has gone into sitting back and assessing, again, what the business needs out of this role, really clearly defining the scope of the role, where they fit in, what would be expected from them. And I think something that sticks in my mind from my time working with you is that clear is kind, and setting out exactly what will be expected of someone at the different milestones when they come on board, really setting people up for success. That's probably the main thing that's changed, as opposed to just get in here and just see what we're doing, and here's your general role, and get about it and get amongst it, and going from that kind of an attitude, which still, you can make it work. But when it's huge and there's 100 team members, people get confused and they can get lost. And so going from that kind of approach to very clear and focused, I think, has been a game changer.
Love that. I actually was listening to a podcast this morning that talked about the amount of cognitive load that ambiguity puts on everyone. And, sometimes we think we're being all casual and informal and come on in and we'll work it out as we go. And what we actually don't realize, and neuroscience is now starting to point out to us, is actually that lack of clarity actually will immediately cause less productivity for that person, because they're going to spend and waste all this mental time going, oh, I wonder if she wants this, or maybe she means this, or maybe she means this, or maybe this is what she wants, blah, 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 blah.
Am I doing a good job? Am I not? Am I adding value? Am I not? Yeah.
Absolutely. So I thought that was fascinating, because I'm like, yeah, clear is kind. Let's just get really clear. But actually, here's some science backing to that, because we all want productive teams. So
I also think on this question, knowing when someone is not right for the team, being very clear on communicating what's not working and how they could turn it around. Again, clear is kind. Very clearly telling them how they could change things, multiple times, and then just really knowing when it's not a good fit. And I now feel extremely comfortable with that, and with saying, we've given you this amount of opportunities to turn this around, and this and this and this. What the business needs is someone who can do this, and that's not you, and all the best. I feel very comfortable with that now.
Awesome. And do you think that comes from being clear of what you were looking for? And is it also knowing that you can go and hire someone else?
Yeah, I think it's both. And I think there's also something in it, knowing what the business needs and knowing what the business deserves, where you're going. And I also think we treat people really well. We have fun. I know that the environment that we're providing is just a really cool, great place to work. And I think if someone's not doing the role that they're paid to do, they don't deserve a spot on our friggin' awesome team. The team that we've got, the awesome team, it sets the standard. If someone's come on and they're not pulling their weight, they're not doing what they were hired to do, it doesn't feel fair to have them around.
Oh, I love that. So it's almost like, because you've got so many awesome people that you're so proud of who are performing, it's almost like you feel obliged to keep your expectations high, to not let everyone else down. I love that. And you can go and hire someone else, and it's an awesome opportunity. And I think what also I heard you saying is, if I've had the conversation, I've let them know, I've given them the opportunity, and they haven't turned it around, then it's like, well, I've done everything I can. So you can sleep.
Exactly. And hand on thing that, to be able to give people fair opportunity, to be very clear on what's not working and exactly how they could turn it around. If we're doing that multiple times and, they don't have the capacity to do that, then it's clear that they're not meant to be part of the team.
I love that so much because I think that until, we learn the multiple prongs that are required there, it's really easy just to get stuck in the, oh, I'm being mean, or they're a really nice person, or, they're lovely or whatever.
A legend of a human being. And they are a really nice person. They're really lovely and they're just not right for the team and that role.
And that's okay.
But that's okay.
Yeah, love. Gracefully let them go to greener pastures and find what's right for them.
Yeah, to a role that's right for them, because it must be extremely uncomfortable for that person as well to be in this business, in this role where they cannot do what is required of them and they don't have that capacity to do so. Like, that's not kind to even keep someone around feeling like that.
I love that because it's exactly it. It's nobody wants to sit there and deliberately do the wrong thing. So either they don't know what you want them to do or they don't know how to do it. But I think it maybe help them.
Yeah, but then there does come a time where that role isn't right for that person and you can gracefully send them off to another role that is right for them. And everyone wins then.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's then, and when you can view it from that perspective, which I just love, it's like you can then talk to the rest of the team about it from that perspective as well. It's like, well, no one's being mean here. This is the process we've been through, and this is actually also best for them.
Yes. And sometimes you'll find, that other team members come out and they haven't said anything, but they're like, oh, they feel really relieved, and other people are feeling uncomfortable too, because people pick up on that when there's someone on the team who isn't carrying their weight, and it can have a ripple effect throughout the organization.
Absolutely. I remember exactly that happening when I was a leader in one of my corporate roles, when I was a director, is finding out after the fact that my team had gone through this process where they had been covering for the bad performer so that she wouldn't get in trouble, in inverted commas. And then it got to a point where they realized, oh, actually, you're affecting me doing my job. So then they went into sabotaging her mode, trying to point out to me the things that she didn't do. And I remember when I found this out afterwards, I was like, guys and girls, next time, can we all just be a little bit more open about this and hold our standards?
Yeah, it's like, hey, you should have come to me at this, and this point. Next time, do you promise that you will? I'm all ears. Like, you can use it as a learning opportunity for sure.
Totally. And what stopped you from bringing this up? And what were you worried about and all that?
Yeah.
Okay. So it sounds to me almost like you've got, and do you view it like this? Do you view it as you've got almost two teams? You've got your head office team and then your broader team. And do you sort of, structure the activities, or do you look at it going, okay, well, what culture do we have here? What culture are we fostering here? Like,
a lot of our instructors are casuals and they kind of come and go and they're in the studio on their own. So how we would nurture them and, with get-togethers so they can get together with their other instructors and feel part of the organisation. That's quite different to the head office team that are in the office together and, are catching up, like spending their days working together. Not all the time. We have a hybrid team in the office a couple of days a week, from home a couple of days a week. Our Sydney head office team, they get together every now and again. So it is quite a broad mix, but we do kind of treat the teams differently. You have to.
Yeah. And we've almost got like a third business or a third like team coming into the mix, which is your franchisees. So let's talk about that. You've recently sold 2. Congratulations. Talk us through the thought process that you went through that made you conclude franchising was right and the plans from there.
Yeah. So I thought about it quite a while. And then once I decided that it was the way to go, it did still take all the legals and things of quite a long process. It was about 18 months. I decided in the end that it was the way to go because I just thought the model works. First and foremost, I don't want to, be sharing anything that isn't successful and doesn't work. I really wanted to, and I still do, want to grow the business pretty quickly so that more people can experience the Muse effect. And like the communities that we've got, they absolutely just love it and live for it. And I know that the business is doing amazing things. And for me, being able to bring people in as franchisees and they can have their own successful business while then creating that ripple effect, more Muse, more happy communities of people keeping well. Like, it just checked a lot of boxes and made sense to me to go down that path.
Yeah. And I guess it's a way to expand with a little bit of a capital injection as well, which is helpful.
Yeah, exactly. Always.
Okay, cool. So, because a lot of people listening certainly a lot of people have come to me over the years thinking about franchising as a cost-effective way to grow, but it's also got, it's obviously got pros and cons. So, you're only 2 in, so it's reasonably new. So think about legals. Anything else that you sort of want to share that people need to think about? Is it like getting really clear on who or?
Well, I think in the beginning, I was told a lot of people kind of go into franchising when they've got one business that works or they've got two kind of locations and they're like, oh, let's go nuts. I didn't do it until there was 9 or 10. I'm forgetting now, but across multiple regions, across multiple states. And I don't think everyone, like, I'm not saying everyone should wait until they're that big, but also I think knowing that your model does work in different regions, in different locations, like it's actually transferable. So you can hand on heart know that what you've got other people can use successfully is really important. And I think the next thing is it wasn't so much of a stretch for us because we already had all of these policies and procedures and everything was absolutely tight. So we did need to, once we had franchisees coming on board, put that in a really slick fashion in a franchisee portal. And that there was still work involved, but it wasn't like, oh, we've just been doing something and it worked, so we've got a franchise and we then have to put all the policies and procedures and everything together. It wasn't like that at all. We're already doing the thing very successfully across different states and regions. So I think there's a lot involved. Even the legals process is huge and it's extremely costly. Like, it's not an easy option is what I will say. Like, I think it's worthwhile and there's a bigger strategy in mind and, you know, to really grow. But if people are sitting there thinking that it's just an easy option that's a really huge moneymaker immediately, that's not the case.
I love that because a lot of people weigh it up. They go, I could pay a salary or I could get a franchisee and they think it's cheaper. But what we've just heard from you is like, it's not going to be cheaper.
You also have to put resources from your team to supporting the franchisee, which you have to consider that as well. The franchisee has to be supported and all of your systems and things you've got have to be top notch at all times so that you can provide that to the franchisee. And then you've got to think about all other things that you're supplying to them. So if there are things to consider, like marketing things that you would normally do, you can't just go, cool, we're going to do this. You have to plan things out months in advance. Everything has to be considered, like how would this be for a franchisee to do this as opposed to corporate? Like, it's, I'm not going to say complicated, but it's more complex. There's so much more to it. You're not just a corporate, like you're not just a business. You have to put your franchisor hat on with everything and make sure that what you're doing impacts them in a really good way.
Totally. So I'm thinking even like a last minute special. It's a bit like, well, we can't just slap this up tomorrow because we need to give everybody due notice and whatnot and let people know. Okay. So sounds like you need to be pretty organized, have your method mapped, and well and truly already have your policies and procedures and things in place and weigh up the cost of legals versus, you know, maybe the beneficial cost of a franchisee down the track. Love that. Okay. And you've also recently launched an online Pilates reformer teacher training course, which is incredible. So it's almost like you've got 3 little businesses. You've got the Muse business, the franchising business, and the online teacher training business.
Exactly. Yeah.
Wow. How's that going? How's that latest? Well, I guess the franchising is probably the latest, but how's the online teacher training going?
It's going really well. It's growing quite a lot since I think it was April that it launched. So month on month it's building, which is good. The reason that I decided to create that was we need teachers coming through. They're casual. It does lend itself to a little bit of a more transient kind of workforce. So there is an always on sort of recruitment process happening. When people came to us and were wondering where they should get training, we were kind of sending them off and then having them back and kind of training them up with the way that we wanted to train them. And it just seemed like a bit of a wasted opportunity. So typical me, I just think anything can be done in a couple of months. It took a really long time. It took, I'm going to say 14 months from let's do this to launching. So it was quite a big process. But we've had people come through and start teaching for us that have done it. And we're really, really happy with it.
That is such a win. So you're feeding your future instructors and you've got this additional revenue stream and people are kind of coming in already knowing your way. So that's also epic. Great. Oh, good on you. You are such an inspiration and all these things you're doing is so very cool.
In that case, I thought, instead of sending them elsewhere, let's just create that business. Why don't we just create that business? And the reason that I did it under a different business name and branding was because our core kind of demographic at Muse really is like 30 to 60-year-old women. And then we found that the majority of instructors coming through, and not all, but a lot of them were kind of that 18 to 30 range. So it didn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to me to put something through a business that it's not really the core demographic that you're going after marketing wise. But obviously there's so much more involved in doing that. And yeah, nuts.
I love it. Lots of ideas. One of the things that certainly I know from working with you, and you've touched on it a little bit, is you are a very big advocate for hiring in expertise. You know, we talked at the beginning about hiring in help around the house, but also, you know, your whole business journey, you're always like, let's get someone in, let's get someone in. If you think back, like what have been the key, maybe it's I don't know, whether it's like a mentor or a senior role or somebody or just some skills that you've hired in. What are the ones that have stood out as far as being really impactful as you've scaled?
I think maybe the most important thing from a service level perspective would be mentors for our instructors, probably like, you know, front of the line, what clients are seeing every time they come in, their experience, having mentors to make sure that the instructing team, the instructors are absolutely top notch. But to be able to have those people on that are there specifically just to make sure the service delivered is as good as it could be, really amazing hire.
Yeah, awesome. What about for you or for the head office team? What do you feel like, because everybody listening would go through, particularly people in much earlier stages of business than where you are now, you know, on a daily basis would be weighing up, should I learn this myself? Should I do this myself? Or is now the time to bring someone else in to guide me on it or do it for me?
And it's always weighing that up, isn't it?
Yep.
Do I really need this right now because I could spend this money on X, Y, Z? In the beginning, I was doing everything. I wasn't teaching all the classes because I think we opened with 40 something or 50 classes a week. And that was the opening schedule was huge. So I taught a bit and I did all the back end of the business and everything like that. But I was doing customer service. And I think the most important hire I've ever made was to get someone to help with that customer service. You know, I put my heart and soul into this, so much money, so much effort, so much hustle. And I found when people would kind of complain about something silly, I would just be so enraged. And I knew, I'm self-aware enough to know that like it wasn't even valid. Like, you know, someone didn't show up to a class and they didn't want to lose that class. I don't know, something like that, which is just, I mean, we get people saying things like that all the time. It just is what it is. And it's human nature for people to see if they can get away with something. And it's not a big deal. But I knew that dealing with those kinds of things was impacting me in a way that was just, it was frustrating me more than it should. So it was like, I did it for a while. And then my first kind of hire, apart from instructors and a cleaner and that kind of thing, was getting someone on board to help with that customer service and then having a set of rules about what we would say yes to, what we would say no to, and that kind of a thing, and just removing me from that process. So I'm all about, if something can be done in an easier way that doesn't, you know, frustrate me or anything like that, like, let's do it. But I did wrestle with that for quite a while because, you know, when you talk to people who just start a business, they're like, well, don't spend any money on anything that you don't absolutely have to, which in theory, that's great. But also you're never going to grow doing that. So.
Yeah, I love that. So it's like, this is something that was probably really like triggering you or frustrating you. So it's like, how do I separate myself? And also, how do I protect my energy?
Totally. Everything is energy.
Yeah, to be forward facing, like growth, getting better, not like looking in the rearview mirror going, what, you want a $12 refund? Like, really? So hiring in a mentor for the instructors. And that's interesting. Everybody can probably give that some thought. Like, how am I supporting the people on the ground who are front facing to my customers or clients to be the best they can be? And then how do I protect my energy? And what else do I need to hand over that potentially is aggravating me?
In a frustration or anything that can be done easier probably is a clear choice, you know. Even if it's a bit stretchy in the beginning and you're getting a little bit of help, and then you gradually increase that help to lower that frustration or protect your energy, or gradually support people in your business in a way that you can, even if it's slow, I think is a good idea.
Yeah. And what about you? Have you always had somebody like in some form? Obviously we've worked together, but like, you know, if you think of the whole 5 years, have you always had somebody supporting you, whether it was like a coach or a mentor or somebody, or been in groups and things, or has that been on and off?
On and off. Yeah, I don't at the moment. I haven't for a little while. Yeah, I think there becomes times where you just generally want to be a part of a group and be, you know, in it, mucking in with other people who are doing big things. And then like when I worked with you, I knew that that was a specific area that I really wanted to grow my knowledge and skill set in. And I just really listen to my gut. Like I'm a sacral kind of big and know when I need more support or need to be around those people. I've done things like I was in EO for a couple of years and I didn't, that was almost like an ego thing, to be honest. Like you can't get into EO until you're at $1 million turnover. And I was like, oh my God, I can do it. But I don't think I got anything out of it at all, if I'm extremely honest with you. And that was probably money that I should have spent on a holiday. Like you live and you learn, and then you learn things about yourself. And I could sit here today and go, that was just out of ego. Like,
it's a cool club to be in once you're in, $1 million, and then you check it out and go, oh, actually, what do I want from this?
yeah.
Yeah.
And also it doesn't really mean anything. Like, someone can have $1 million turnover and not take home a cent either. Like, I think as you grow in business and you learn all of these things, like, what's ego and what's not.
Yeah. I love that. I love that it's like there are stages when you felt like you wanted specific support on a specialist topic. There are stages when you felt like you needed group energy, people doing big things. And I think, I've been in lots of groups over the years that have just been, in hindsight, distracting, where I've just gotten it's been like too many bright, shining objects happening with what everybody else is doing. And actually, I need to just have my head down and just be doing the thing or focusing on my direction. So,
yeah, and you get ideas from people, or you kind of, they're talking about a problem and you didn't really realize you had that problem, but then you're like, oh, that's happening for me too. Like, I think you just have to follow your gut with what you need at the time.
And I think it's nice for everyone to hear, it's a cycle, like everything.
Yeah.
Awesome. Oh, so many juicy things. Thank you for sharing so much of the behind the scenes. And I think, I really appreciate it. And I know everybody listening will too, because I think that there are just so many things that we don't talk openly about when it comes to building a business, and like the nuts and bolts and the challenging things along the way. So thank you for being open.
I'm such an open book, and sometimes I think I probably share too much. But I'm a bit the same with motherhood as well. Everyone's like, that's so lovely and what? And I've always just say it how it is. And I'm a bit, sometimes I'm a bit crass, and I have a good sense of humor, but I'm an open book.
Amazing. Well, motherhood's pretty tricky too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not all fun all the time.
And I think that no matter where they're at, and it's the same in business, you just have to be like, here are the tricky things and here are the amazing things, and just appreciate where you're at with anything.
And I think that wraps you up. You see the opportunity, you see the positivity, and that's what you're chasing. And I love that about you. So thank you so much for sharing a bit of your wisdom, your behind the scenes. Where can everybody listening come and follow you? Maybe they want to be a franchisee. Maybe they want to be a Pilates teacher. Where do they go? How can they tap in?
Well, come follow me on Instagram. I'm the Allana Ford, and then all of my links to everything is from there. And yeah, I've got some knowledgeable things on there and some just stupid and funny things too. I've got as I said, pretty funny sense of humor. So
I'll pop all the links below. Thank you so much for your time, Allana.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks for having me.